So if you look in your handout at section 6, A and B, these are the only two verses that talk about polygamy specifically in the Quran. And I think it's important to look at what it says about the purpose and the conditions for polygamy. So it says, "And if you fear that you will not be able to deal justly with the orphan girls, then marry the women of your choice, 2, 3, or 4. But if you fear that you shall not be able to deal justly with them, then only 1, or the slaves that your right hand possesses. That is more likely to prevent you from doing injustice." If we read this verse, we see that the beginning and end of the verse is about justice. Right? If you can't do justice to the orphan girls, then marry other women, 2, 3, or 4. And if you can't do justice to them, then marry only 1. And this is all so that you won't do injustice. Right? Its concern is with justice. I think this is important. Right? It's not saying, if you as a man, you just can't be satisfied with one wife, you need to have variety or something in your life. It doesn't say that. That's not the purpose it gives for polygamy. The purpose is to create a situation of justice for women. As contrary as that may sound to us in the modern period, that is the orientation of the verse. And then a little bit later in that same surah, it says, "You will never be able to do perfect justice between your wives, even if it is your ardent desire. So do not incline too much to one of them so as to leave the other hanging." In other words, do the best you can in terms of showing your affection to your various wives. But some modern commentators, Muhammad Abdu, for example, an important Muslim scholar and theologian from the early 20th century, argued in the context of the modern world where you don't have this situation of lots of women who don't have anyone to take care of them. And if you take that new situation, you combine it with this thing that says, if you can't do justice between your wives, take only 1, and you'll never be able to do justice between your wives, to say, you know what? Maybe polygamy isn't really something Muslims should be practicing in this day and age. Maybe we can't ban it, obviously, it's in the Quran, but maybe this is monogamy, we should say, is really the preferable way to be married in this contemporary situation. Okay, but nonetheless, right, this is a right that men have, obviously, that women do not. The Quran also gives men the right to divorce their wives at will. Right? So they don't have to have a reason. They don't have to go to court or even have witnesses, technically, to divorce their wives. Right? They can divorce their wives simply by pronouncing the statement, "I divorce you," 3 times. Okay? And the 3 times is important. Right? The understanding was the way that it was supposed to work is that if a man felt that he could no longer be married to his wife, he would say, "I divorce you." And then it wasn't a permanent divorce yet. It was more like a separation. And they would separate, and they would have a kind of cooling off period, and then they would get together and they would try to reconcile again. And if that didn't work, he would say a second time, "I divorce you," and they would separate again. You'd have another kind of cooling off period. They would come back together. If he said it a 3rd time, then they were completely divorced. Right? And they could not be remarried again after that 3rd divorce unless and until the wife, the ex-wife, I guess, married another man and was eventually divorced from that man. Only then could they remarry. And I think this was meant to make people think twice, right? If you do it 3 times, that's really going to be it. You can't marry your wife again until she marries someone else. Okay. Eventually, some schools of law allowed men to be able to just say, "I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you," 3 times, and that was it. But again, I think that's not the way, as the Quran describes it, it was intended initially to work.